When I bought that piece of land at the edge of Cedar Valley, I thought I'd finally found peace. The property sat beside a quiet creek that wound its way through a patch of oak trees, and every morning sunlight spilled across the water like molten gold. I built my house there with my own hands, slowly, carefully, because I wanted it to feel like it belonged to the land, not like it had conquered it. For the first few months, life was perfect. My dog, Scout, would chase butterflies across the field while I worked on small projects around the yard. The neighbors waved, the mail came on time, and the nights were filled with crickets and stars. Then came the HOA. At first, they seemed harmless enough. They sent out a friendly little "Welcome to the community" letter with a list of rules and dues. I remember laughing when I read some of them. No sheds without permission, no unapproved paint colors, and of course no unauthorized structural changes near common water features. The thing is, that creek wasn't a common water feature. It ran directly through my property, clearly marked on the deed, but apparently the HOA believed otherwise. A month later, a heavy storm rolled in. The water level rose, flooding half my driveway and washing out the little footpath that crossed the stream. It was clear I needed something sturdier, so I designed a small wooden bridge. Simple, safe, beautiful. When I finished building it, it felt like a triumph. It wasn't fancy, just a few beams, some steel bolts, and planks sealed to handle the weather. It made my land whole again. Scout loved running across it, and I liked sitting on it at sunset, watching the reflection of the trees. 3 days later, I got the letter. It came in a crisp white envelope, stamped with the HOA logo, like it was something official from the government inside. In bold letters, it said, "Notice of violation, unauthorized construction on HOA-managed land. Fine, $350. Remedy, immediate removal of structure or risk of further penalties." I read it 3 times before I started laughing. On HOA-managed land? That was my land. I'd bought it outright, paid the taxes, everything. I figured it was some sort of clerical mistake, so I called them. A woman named Karen answered, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. "Homeowners Association, this is Karen speaking." "Hi, Karen," I said, trying to keep it friendly. "I just got a notice about a supposed violation. I built a small bridge over the creek on my property, and I think there's been a mix-up." She interrupted. "If it crosses the creek, it's considered part of the community's natural feature area. You can't modify it without HOA approval." "Ma'am," I replied, holding back a laugh, "the creek runs entirely through my property line. I have the survey and deed to prove it." Karen sniffed through the phone like she didn't believe me. "We'll have to review that, sir. In the meantime, the fine stands." I felt my jaw tighten. "The fine stands? For something I own?" "That's correct," she said. "Failure to comply will result in additional charges and possible legal action." And just like that, she hung up. I remember sitting there for a long minute, staring at the letter in my hand. The breeze was moving through the trees outside. It was absurd, ridiculous, even. But that's how it starts with these people. Small power moves, tiny invasions. The next week, I started getting visits. HOA inspectors driving by slowly, taking photos of my bridge from the road. One even came onto my property while I was at work and left another letter taped to my door. Second notice. By the third letter, they were threatening to report me to the county for unauthorized environmental alteration. That's when something in me shifted. See, I don't like bullies. Never have. And if they wanted a fight over my bridge, I was going to give them one they'd never forget. When I walked into the monthly HOA meeting, I thought it would be a quick, humiliating formality. A room full of folding chairs, coffee-stained agendas, and a few people who thought their job was to enforce order. What I didn't expect was how smug they would be, or how expertly they could hide behind rules while they made life miserable for a neighbor. The meeting was in the community center, a beige box of a building with framed photos of landscaped cul-de-sacs on the wall. I'd shown up early so I could hand my deed to the board and get this thing sorted. Scout sat quietly beside me, head on my knee, looking at everyone like he understood the injustice. The president of the HOA, a man named Philip, called the meeting to order with the practiced monotony of someone who had done it 100 times. He wore a blazer even though it was July and the room smelled faintly of heat and orange-scented disinfectant. Karen sat to his right and smiled with the kind of tightness that meant she was used to getting her way. When it was my turn, I stood and explained calmly and